Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This is a fantastic crowd, full of energy. I love it. It's a bright, sunny day out, and you chose to come in here and spend the next hour and a half with our seniors and listen to their work, and I really appreciate it. I especially appreciate seeing how many alumni I saw coming in the building. If you're an alumni, would you just clap your hands for a minute? Let us know you're out there. Yeah. I think that's a testament to the program that we have every year, every semester, we have our alumni coming back to bear witness to the classes that came behind them and see them present their work in this way, and it's really, really wonderful. I'd like to thank our York College administration for the support that we receive. We have a few of them in the audience tonight. We have our president, Thomas Burns. Thank you for coming, Dr. Burns, and our dean, Andy Barnes. And I'd also like to thank our provost, Patrice DeQuinzio, and my department chair, Matt Inkster, is also in here. And I have colleagues, Troy Patterson and Mel Rogers are over here. And wonderful. Thank you so much. And if I missed you, I'm really, really sorry. I've got Karen Stabley. I know we have a lot of faculty and friends, and I appreciate seeing you all here. We have two exhibitions opening this evening. We have the graphic design senior exhibition, which is called The Amalgamation, and we have the fine art senior exhibition, Madhouse. And I just want to tell you a little bit about these shows. So you will start to see some of the themes running through the presentations. The graphic design seniors had a common prompt called Before and After, where they are looking toward the past for inspiration or things that they could redo or refresh, reimagine, taking something that has existed and thinking about what could be done with it. So the projects take many different paths, and it's exciting to see all the different things that they did. And then the fine art seniors do not have a common prompt, but interestingly, a lot of their work is dealing with similar themes. Mental health, physical health, the body, life and death. And so there's some common themes running through their work as well, but that's just their own personal vision. So the fine art show is on the right when you go into the gallery. Graphic design is on the left. And then in the vestibule, we have graphic design senior, excuse me, their portfolios. And these portfolios are separate from the exhibition, but it is a culmination of the work that they've done as students. And they just recently had a portfolio review down in Baltimore and showed them in a professional setting. And many of the students will be taking these with them to interview for jobs. And I'm telling you this because there's also going to be food out in the lobby. And we're going to try our best to keep the food away from the portfolios because we all want these students to have jobs. And so we're going to keep those portfolios clean. So I appreciate your kindness in thinking of that. I didn't even introduce myself. My name's Matthew Clay Robison. I'm the gallery director, and I've been working with this wonderful group of young adults over the last semester, preparing for this night. And I think it's time for me to get out of the way and turn it over to them. So we are going to begin with our graphic design seniors, and then we will move to our fine art seniors, and then after that, you can join us in the lobby for food, and then go see the exhibition. And about 15 to 20 minutes after we finish here, I will announce some awards in the gallery. So thank you again for being here. I really appreciate seeing you all, and we're going to get this thing started. And by that I mean we're going to get this started with Genny Surun.
Those things are just falling off. Yeah, I know it fell off. Hello, my name is Genny Surun, and there are two things you need to know about me. One, I have a great sense of humor, and two, I am an unstoppable force of nature. And what I mean by that is circumstances may get tough for me, but nothing will stop me from achieving what I want. Now let me tell you about how it started. The first big project I ever did had the goal of making one vector illustrated self-portrait. Anyway, after downing a kettle of coffee, I finished the project a week before the deadline, and my lovely professor uttered the words that would shape how I approach projects for years to come. Do more. Do more shaped how I approach projects, but how I conceptualized projects came long before that. I don't believe in bad ideas, only in poor executions. And in this booklet I made, that is in my portfolio, you can see the bad ideas I have had and that turned out to be great projects, despite being bad ideas. And for me, good execution always seemed to include a good sense of humor, but that's painfully not always the case. This is a series of illustrated covers for the writings of the journalist Ida B. Wells, a journalist in a not-so-fun period of the United States of America. But what was fun was making this cookbook cover for these spreads. The cover was born out of my proneness for injury in both cutting board and cutting mats. And the spread was a collaboration assignment where we made the spreads based on recipes that me and my fellow peers traded. Another fun project was the Wiki Reader. The Wiki Reader started with one article in Wikipedia. We designed a page based on that article, and then we chose another word in that same article, which would lead to another article, and then another, and so on. Mine started at free will, and ended in cats. And now for the funnest project I have had, the dog book. Our goal was to write 10,000 words books and designed it. And I chose to document my journey through social media with me posting artwork every single day. And I had a system. Fridays, those were line art days, where I did a line art, of course. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I had two simple rules. For these 2 days, 1, the image had to be a vector illustration, and 2, the image had to be done following a prompt from a random word generator. This use of the random word generator or random prompt generator will be a common theme throughout this book. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had to do an illustration using only 2 colors that were picked by a random color generator, and I couldn't use colors outside of these 2, not black, not white, nothing in between. I had to use only 2 colors from the random generator. And on Saturdays, I had to make a piece of work using only letters and types. I could not repeat any typefaces that I had used before. This was an entire system of rules that I made up, and it proved to be a key to my success in the madness that was producing this book. Now, you may have noticed these pink dogs in the slides in the corners and the odd typeface used in this presentation. The dogs were the patterns that I used in my documentation book, and the typeface is Mighty Slap, my favorite typeface, and also the typeface that I use for this book that I dearly love. 81 posts, 170 white pages, and 15,000 words, and 284 Monster energy drinks later, I had my dog book named I'm Doing It. And although this project sucked my sanity away, it also showed me how much I could accomplish in duress. Now on to another challenging project that tested every ounce of patience I had. This is the recombination booklet, a project where my dearest professor pretended to be a very difficult client with a lot of disorganization and very bad files. And this taught me to deal with all sorts of clients, including the Florida man. On to less challenging things. One of my favorite things to do in design is to illustrate, so it should come as no surprise that I dabbled in editorial illustration. In this slide, you will see 4 different spreads of editorial illustrations, from covers to eye candy. And any designer worth their salt will have typefaces, so it should be no surprise that I have 2 typefaces based on the things that I love. One is based on paintings from the Lascaux Cave, and the other is based on outer space, and it's named after my favorite hypergiant star. Another thing I love is branding, specifically this branding, the potion of dizziness. It only exists in my heart, and it came to be as a quasi-group project where my group and I all got the same brief. Our goal was to design an identity system for a bar that had a medieval fantasy theme to it. Another brand that I love is Companion Sunscreen. This brand sadly only exists in my imagination. When I got the choice to design any product of my choosing, I chose to design a sunscreen that lasts for 8 hours when applied. It is living proof that I can in fact design a product without having goofiness be a part of it. Now let's go on to some goofy project, that being my senior project. In this project, I had the imperative to redo, rehash, something. So I chose to redesign coins from the 1950s, 1940s, and I made an entire list of goals and deadlines. I had a plan. It was supposed to be easy. It wasn't. I struggled a lot to have it made, and one day, 2 weeks before the deadline, I slept for 16 hours and got a bunch of ideas and came up with something that I actually liked, and this is what you're seeing right now. So anyway, thank you all for attending. Thank you, Prof. P. Thank you, Prof. Mel. Thank you to all my family and friends. I am surrounded by wonderful people. Speaking of, Shae, you're up.
I already forgot how to work this thing. Okay. Hi there, I'm Shae Wray. You all know the drill, or most of you do, probably. This is my senior presentation that goes over basically everything I have ever done, everything I ever will do, and basically all the skills I gathered during my time in YCP as a graphic design student. Let's talk a little bit more about me. If you haven't seen me around campus, you've probably heard me by the sounds of the pins on my hat or the arsenal of keychains I have on my backpack. I graduated from high school at York County School of Technology, which is what actually sparked my interest in graphic design. As there, I majored in communications technology and really got to learn more about the industry and how this stuff worked. This is the work I used to do before coming to YCP, and while it's not necessarily bad, it's not going to get someone a job. So, with a heavy heart, I now only draw like this 75% of the time. I make very good sacrifices. We all make sacrifices. It must be done. And this is just a little bit more of the art I do more now that's more personal. I use these little fellas, in just about everything I can get my little grubby mitts on that I consider my own production. Videos, projects, photos, anything under the sun and more. And now we move on to my work throughout YCP. I have done plenty of projects throughout my time here, but some being harder to construct than others, but with the result always being worthwhile in the end. Some projects were group efforts, while others were solo pieces, and yet no matter the struggles that were had along the way, the job was eventually finished. I went from packaging to postcards to brand creation and production, to packaging, GIF animation, newsletters, photography, and even a wiki reader. I've also explored various mediums throughout the years, such as packaging, what I just said. With this knowledge, I now know how different aspects of the art and graphic design world work and how to persevere as a graphic designer upon exiting graduation at YCP. I even dabbled in a little bit of coding. Via the various typography courses I took at YCP, I created and coded not one, but 2 working typefaces of my own original design, which you can actually use if you go to my Behance. It was one of the more influential learning experiences I got in my graphic design training here. Now this was one of my favorite projects. It's this packaging project where we were given a week to design a K-Cup coffee brand, as well as the little cups that the coffee would come in. We had to design it completely from scratch and make sure that by the 3rd page of Google, something like this didn't already exist. I took a more gothic and spooky approach with mine because I knew I could excel in it, and I did. Now this was a project. This is where we learned how to deal with a very difficult client stationed in Florida. And with this project, not only me, but all of us learned that not all clients are as smart and well prepared as they should be. We were given assets over a random sporadic period of time, and we were tasked with editing them into a newsletter format. And this, it didn't have a client, but was just as hard, as we were also given 1 word to start with and had to end with up to 8, but that was only the minimum. Where we went on Wikipedia and went from one word to another, and know that one slide is not what you think it is. Now on to my main project. Out with the etched on and in with the cover up. So if you weren't already buckled in, babies, you better put on your seatbelts now, because now it's all gonna finally make sense. Probably. No promises. So, how did I even come up with this? Why tattoos? Why? I'll admit that at first I was stumped on what to do for this before and after theme, but with the encouragement of my classmates and the idea of all the variety and skill sets I could utilize, tattoos soon became the obvious choice. Thankfully, this obvious choice was readily accepted, so off I went into starting this imagination of a project. Get it? Why tattooing continue? Well, tattooing is a medium that is far more explored and taken upon nowadays than it was in the past. It's popular is what I mean. I chose tattooing not because it was a approved theme, but because I did also know, again, that I could showcase variety, style, and innovation in relation to my graphic design and artistic skill set. Now, for this book showcasing 25 redesigns of bad tattoos, I had to put in a lot of time, labor, and effort. Not only that, though, I also had to put myself out there. I talked to various professors, to my friends and classmates, and even professional tattooers in the form of various interviews, which you can read in my book. Yes, here's a book. If you take a flip through it, this project just wasn't artistic. Yep. Realistic depiction of this is me, totally 100 focused on my project. Definitely not a stock photo. The research period of this project was one of the most fulfilling portions of the project creation process, as I got to see just how bad some people can design and how confident some bad designers can be. Seriously, Godplexes are real. This is just a taste of the processes I went through, and if you hadn't already know, I've drawn everything you've seen so far here, either with a computer and a mouse or on my phone with my strange baby fingers. I've never used a tablet during my time at YCP or in the before times. Anyways, here's just a couple images so you get a mere glimpse at my artistic process. The rest, I'll leave all that to, yep. Really good, so what was it all for? A really good grade. No, I'm just kidding. Out with the etched on and in with the cover up was created because I knew it would be a good showcase of all I've learned. After all, this book showcases that I can write, draw, format, layout, compare and contrast, and so much more. It not only shows that, but it also shows that I understand the world of production and how to make stickers, books, and even temporary tattoos. A big thank you to everyone. I have a lot of people to thank, but I'll be quick, I promise. No, I won't. I thank my friends, both present and online, for cheering me on. I thank my dad and his side of the family for encouraging my creativity. I thank my grandmother and her boyfriend for taking me in and raising me. And I thank my sisters for being weird. I would not be the person I am without you all today. And to the people who couldn't make it, I thank you too. To them, I have just one thing to say. I made it. I made it and I succeeded, and that is the greatest victory I will ever have. So thank you for being there when I needed you, even if you're no longer here. I will never forget you, and I hope you don't forget me. Oh, wait, I'm not. Y'all were a little early, but the end. That's all. Now on to our next designer, Erin Webb.
Hello everyone, my name is Erin Webb and I am here to talk to you about my journey as a student studying graphic design. This has been such an exciting time for me and I can't wait to share my love for graphic design with you all. This might sound like a cliche coming from a designer, but I have always loved art growing up. Whether I was at home or at my grandparents' house, I had art supplies available to keep me occupied, such as paint, crayons, markers, and anything else you can think of. As you can see here, I loved art so much that I had to wear it. In school, I looked forward to taking art classes, but in middle school, it wasn't guaranteed that I would be in an art class. In high school, I was able to pick the electives I wanted, including art. I also had the opportunity to take graphic design classes at a career school. This is where I was introduced to the world of graphic design, and I ended up falling in love with it. This was the final project from the graphic design class. I was introduced to this style of digital illustration using Adobe Illustrator and chose to redesign state license plates into stamps. Clearly, my skills then are not what they are now, and my next chapter in life allowed for me to grow my digital drawing skills and become the designer that I am today. Starting freshman year, one of the first projects I was tasked with was to design a Netflix advertisement of a show of our choice. I chose my favorite show, Gilmore Girls. We had to digitally illustrate from an image and make it detailed enough to understand what the image is. While creating this project, I started to realize how much I enjoyed illustrating in this style. The final project for freshman year was to design a poster with 50 vector icons. I chose to digitally draw fruits and vegetables as my icons. I was able to take something as common as food and make it my own. I enjoyed the challenge of creating these vector icons to make them recognizable with enough detail, but not too much. Sophomore year focused on print production, and one of the projects was designing a cookbook cover for our class cookbook. When choosing what I wanted the cover to look like, I went back to my style of digital illustration because I am good at it and I feel the most creative when I am designing this way. The other part of this project was designing a spread of a classmate's recipe and integrating photography and typography into the design. Through this process, I realized that I don't enjoy combining my own photography and type layout, but what I do enjoy is combining text with my digital illustrations. Junior year, I was taking publication design, and our major project was a documentation book that had to include 10,000 words. We could choose any topic we wanted as long as there was evidence of consistent documentation. So after discussion, I ended up deciding to take a picture of an object around me and write about my day-to-day as a college student. My favorite part about this book was combining my three favorite things: typography, digital illustration, and patterns. Setting the type to perfectly fit in the page is satisfying to me, along with color coordinating text. Color is important to me when I am designing. I am good at figuring out what colors look best together and how much color is needed on a page or in an illustration. Looking back at where I started to what my design looks like now shows dramatic improvement. I was able to open up with my design and add emotion and character. After the hardships I had my junior year, I knew that I wanted to start creating work that reflected my newfound happiness, new path in life. This leads me into the basis of my senior project. Color can be imaginative. There are no rules when using color. Color can be used to express emotions, feelings, situations, basically anything you want it to represent. I wish I could say that I'm an expert on color theory. Wait, what am I saying? I basically am an expert on color theory, and I almost have the degree to prove it. A memory I have from childhood is being excited to receive a 64-pack of crayons while at my grandmother's house, and sometimes I find myself wishing I was that little girl coloring without a care in the world. But I digress. If I haven't said that already, I love color. Now that I've emphasized how much color means to me, I want to share what my senior project is all about. Crayola crayons were the #1 material I used to draw and color with as a kid. Our house was never not stocked with colorful crayons, both new and old. The thing I love about Crayola crayons now is the names that they give to their colors. The names are unique and playful, which make them fun to use. For my senior project, I was given the prompt of before and after, which meant I had to redesign anything to make it different from what it was before. I chose to redesign Crayola crayon names to be digital illustrations in my style as a series of 30 postcards with 15 colors in total. Each color would have an individual illustration and a pattern of the illustration. For example, the color macaroni and cheese would be illustrated as a bowl of mac and cheese, and the pattern would be of a noodle. I knew I wanted to incorporate my digital illustration style in my senior project because it is something that I love doing. I do well working in Adobe Illustrator using the pen tool to create vector icons, and I wanted to show that off in this project. As I said, I love working with color, and choosing to do a series of postcards would allow me to continue to practice what I love designing. It's all thanks to my doc book. Without having that process of digitally drawing every day, I wouldn't have realized how much I enjoyed doing it. I wanted these postcards to give a sense of nostalgia when looking at them. I want you to feel full of serotonin when these illustrations, the same way I was filled with serotonin when I was laying out, coloring with crayons on the floor on a warm summer day. I've come a long way from where I started in high school. I've learned many valuable lessons that I will carry with me throughout my career after graduation. I'm happy that this project was my last before ending my chapter here. It represents the happiness I found in my life over the past year, and I can't wait for you all to see it. Thank you for coming, and I hope you all will enjoy seeing what I created. Also, thank you to my classmates, professors, family, and friends for helping me along this journey. I couldn't have done it without you. Next, we have Abby.
No, the mouse disappeared.
Yeah, it's on the projector. Go all the way outside.
Oh, there it is. Oh, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Abbey Brown. Tonight I will be showcasing and highlighting some of my many projects made throughout my 4 years in the graphic design program. Each project made over the course of these few years has led me to be the designer that I am today, and I can't wait to share them with you all. When thinking about my options for the future in high school, I did not know exactly what I wanted to major in at college. I've always had a passion for art and creating, doodling in my notebook. Upon touring York College, I got to hear about the amazing things the graphic design program had to offer and knew this was where I wanted to study. Since I was not introduced to Adobe software in high school, my first introduction to the software was a big challenge for me, but I had to learn quick. During my first semester of college, my understanding developed quickly, creating 50 state icons using Adobe Illustrator as well as a series of letter forms. My projects done in my print production course ensured that I learned the fundamental concepts of preparing work for print. During this course, I created a series of 3 flow posters, an interactive poster, as well as a spread for a cookbook. During my Typography 2 course in the spring of 2022, I designed 2 typefaces. Over the semester, I set the type and laid out the designs for 5 small weekly books. After finishing the course and looking back, I could see the progression in my work and started to gain more confidence in my layout and design choices. In my fall 2022 semester, I took publication design, which taught me how to design commercial, industrial, and personal publications. During this course, I created a Wikipedia reader, a project based on a given topic, and spreads designed throughout the various hyperlinks on the pages. Also during publication design, I was tasked with creating a 10,000-word documentation book. I knew that I wanted to incorporate my love for photography into the book and decided to document daily life, pulling from a daily deck of cards, deciding what I would capture that day. The daily routine of capturing, documenting, and curating content pushed me to new heights as both a designer and a creator. Despite the late nights spent editing photos and setting type, this project stands out as one of my favorites and one I'm immensely proud to have created. I took web design, where I created wireframes and mockups using Figma for both desktop and mobile devices. My favorite aspect of these projects were designing and laying out the information provided to create easy-to-navigate websites. I also had the opportunity to take both printmaking and lettering arts. These courses introduced me to a more hands-on approach to creating art. I discovered a deep appreciation for the way that paint interacts with the paper that makes each piece unique and special. I was lucky enough to be able to spend my spring 2023 semester abroad studying in Milan, Italy. During my time there, I was captivated by the city's innovative design. Immersing myself in Italian culture was a transformative experience, allowing me to gain a deeper understanding for design. During my time abroad, I took many different courses that broke me out of my comfort zone, which focused more on experimental design projects that included packaging for eggs, editorial illustrations, a foldable poster, and many more projects. Upon returning from Italy, I took illustration 2 in the fall. I worked on editorial illustrations, a weekly prompt, book covers, and even design on a plate with Sharpie. As someone who lacked confidence skills in my illustrations, I now became confident and looked forward to including them in my design projects. When studying abroad, I visited the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art in Nice, France. This is where I saw work by Rhianna Eveland. Her work immediately caught my eye and drew my attention to it. I loved how she used dried plants and flowers to create unique art. When thinking about my senior project, I knew I wanted to focus on something that I was passionate about and interested me, but I did not know exactly what that something was. I've always loved nature and felt a deep connection to how it can connect with art, which led me to want to create my own pieces. I experimented with many different methods of pressing plants and flowers by using textbooks, a small flower press, and even by pressing them in the microwave. There was a lot of trial and error at first, but eventually I found the method that worked best for me and ran with it. I spent the next few weeks gathering and collecting all different kinds of plants and flowers, drying and pressing them to be used in my work. I found a love for creating the layouts of each piece and the intricate detail that went into creating each one. Although the pieces could stand alone, I wanted viewers to be able to dive deeper into the detail of my work, documenting the scientific and common names of each plant and flower. This led me to designing a book to showcase them and provide a more in-depth look. I found a love for creating these works, and doing them did not feel like a project at all. I love the process and details of creating each one. I'm very proud of these pieces, and I cannot wait for everyone to see them on display in the gallery. I would like to say a huge thank you to my parents for supporting me and always being there for me. I would not have been able to get through these 4 years without you. I also want to thank my professors, especially Professor Patterson and Professor Rogers, for their guidance, wisdom, and dedication to their students and the program. Thank you. Next up, we have Delaney.
Hello, thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Delaney Bartholo, and wow, I can't believe it's already been 4 years. There is so much that has happened from the first time that I stepped foot in Wolf Hall to now. So I'm here tonight to share my journey with you and how it got me to where I stand today with my final senior project that you all get to see tonight. Starting college mainly on Zoom my freshman year, I was concerned about how this was affecting my education. I was able to create projects like a Netflix ad for Grey's Anatomy and a typeface poster, but the work I was producing, I wasn't impressed with. I also found that there was a lack of community in the classroom from not being in there in person. Sophomore year, once we were finally back in the classroom, I was able to find some personality in my work. Dabbling in different areas of graphics and typography, I was able to create projects like this interactive poster where I invited people to add stickers to fill in the question of what makes you smile. I was also able to discover photography. I already knew I had a love for photography, but I was able to expand my knowledge by taking digital image, editorial photography, and darkroom photography, which is where I completed the requirements for my minor. Darkroom is where I thrived, especially when it came to telling a story through an image and capturing photos of my family. I was able to find that passion that I was looking for and display it in my documentation book, where I researched the relation between colors and emotions with a daily practice that I got to do myself and then I got to share with 20 of my close friends. I ended up writing a book that was 116 pages long and contained 17,000 words. Taking classes like printmaking and letterpress is also where I found the most joy in graphic design. I was able to be hands-on with my work without being stuck behind a screen and while doing work that is still considered graphic design. Being able to be present in a studio with ink on my hands is something that I love. But because of this, I have struggled with knowing what the line between graphic design and fine art is. I love graphic design, and I think I'm pretty good at it, but I also can't sit still. So a career at a desk, behind a computer for the next 40 years, yeah, that's not gonna work for me forever. I need to be making something with my hands. But doesn't that mean I'm a fine artist? Am I in the right major? Am I doing the right thing? I love setting type and making graphics, but I also love painting and mark making. Through all of these doubts and the back and forth between it all, the answer is I am a graphic designer, and that simply means that I can do whatever I want. If I want to spend a week making a logo, sure, let's do it. I was able to make this coffee brand inspired by my pap in that amount of time. If I want to mess around with materials and then turn them into a series of poster, piece of cake. Here's 3 that I made my sophomore year and I love. If I want to up and leave the country mid-year, count me in. My study abroad trip to Milan, Italy was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. Milan, with my favorite travel partners in crime, was a saving grace. In 17 weeks, I was able to travel to 18 different cities and spend all of the money in my bank account. I came home a new person, a new designer, and with the confidence to take on my senior project full force. But when given the prompt before and after, all of that confidence went straight out the window. What was I supposed to do with this? I didn't want to make something that already existed. I just came home from Italy with new experiences and new projects under my belt, and I have to copy somebody else's work? These were my initial thoughts. Once I flushed out all those fears, I got to work. Originally, I thought I wanted to go on the route of incorporating my interests of psychology into my project. Learning different practices in an art therapy class that I took, I thought maybe I could start here, but the DSM-5 was a little too intimidating to try and redo. Then I thought back to all of the art history classes that I took. A lot of what we learned in those classes, I got to see in person in Italy, so that ensured me to dig deeper. I have always had an interest in pop art, and Andy Warhol has always been an artist that I admire. And conveniently, I love soup. But how am I going to pull off redesigning such a famous piece like Andy Warhol's Campbell soup cans? Warhol painted all of these cans with acrylic paint, 32 of them to be exact, all different types of soup. But I'm not a fine artist, so painting all 32 cans wouldn't be an accurate way to define myself as a designer. Okay, so how about I just paint one can? And then I could maybe paint one with watercolor paint? Maybe I could even do a finger painting. My thought was, how can I incorporate everything that I have learned over the past 4 years into my project? Is that even possible, though? Because of what we have seen so far from some of my work, there's not just one thing that I've stuck with and focused on throughout my time here. And if you know me, you know I can't make a decision to save my life. So why bother? Why do I have to make a decision when I could just do it all? Simple as that, right? So that's what I did. Everything from painting and drawing to vector and digital art. I photographed, I mark-maked, I collaged and screen printed. You name it, I probably did it. But that only got me to like 15 cans. Perfect, I thought. 15 is enough. Not for Prof. Rogers, it wasn't. She said, "How many did Warhol make?" I responded, 32, with a concerned look on my face, knowing exactly what she was about to say. "Delaney, if Warhol did 32, then so are you." Oh Lord, are there even 32 different medias out there? Maybe. Instead, I took a different route. I just made my own. Anything can be turned into art. Legos, shrink-a-dinks, toothpicks, matches, pasta, and so much more that you'll get to see soon in the gallery in my cans of chaos. All of it is art, as long as you set your mind to it and have the confidence to pursue it. This project, along with everything that I've done the past 4 years, has taken a community to achieve. So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone, including all of my family, friends, classmates, and professors. More specifically for this project, I'd like to thank my dad for helping me make all of the frames, my niece Rowan for coloring the beautiful picture in the gallery, my girlfriend Reagan for her amazing Lego skills, and all of the love and support she's given me from the very beginning of this project. I couldn't have done it without any of you, so thank you. And last for graphic design, we have Gabby.
Hello everyone, my name is Gabrielle Haring and I stand before you to dissect the behind the scenes of my degree, as some like to call it coloring inside the lines, otherwise known as graphic design. As my final semester comes to a close, I could not be more honored to discuss the multifaceted nature of my education and the doors I've unlocked during my time at York. These illustrations depict the doors of my youth that contributed to my foundation. Behind these doors, there were many conversations about aspirations and where I would find my success as a professional. Graphic design didn't enter this conversation until my senior year of high school. Committing to an unfamiliar field was intimidating, but one I've never looked back on. The doors of Wolf Hall have further developed the foundation I will expand for the remainder of my career. It was here that I first opened Adobe Illustrator, learned how to set type, and became the birthplace of the brand Skitters. This building embodies the individuals who have provided the skills and confidence to navigate the new doors I will encounter in life. Upon my introduction to college life and graphic design in the fall of 2020, we were also navigating COVID, which introduced many new variables to our education. Survey of Western arts, elements of computer graphics, and drawing launched me into a new way of learning, deviating from the traditional ways of lecture and incorporating a hands-on approach. Sophomore year, I gained the flexibility to pick and choose electives. Taking digital photography, lettering arts, illustration 1, and letterpress bolstered my artistic capabilities. The variety in my schedule displayed the importance of trying all the things and showed the ways digital and analog mediums inform each other while working in tandem. Little did I know my introduction to illustration would ignite a fire. I always loved doodling in the margins of my notebooks, but who knew this could be turned into a skill to use professionally? My love of drawing has taken me through 4 levels of illustration. From editorial illustration to character design and book covers, it has become an overarching theme throughout my work. My second level of illustration encouraged a more curious approach to assignments. I tampered with new mediums for the creation of projects. Sharpies on glass plates resulted in decorative dishware. Gouache paint on Bristol paper contributed textural elements within different projects, both methods supporting exploration beyond the digital realm. The fall of junior year came and went. Publication design encouraged me to implement my own illustrative daily practice while exploring an assortment of tools and techniques for drawing. This project showed the ways that collaborative communication can lead to a variety of inspiration and exploration in visuals, and led to the production of a 120-page book containing over 10,000 words. Fast forward to the fall of my senior year. Darkroom photography introduced a new practice while fine-tuning my photographic eye, and now giving me separation anxiety from my camera. This practice has inspired my independent study this semester, allowing me to explore the use of cyanotypes and film negatives. Research has been a focal point throughout my education. While it can be a black hole, bottomless pit, or my favorite because it's productive procrastination, it will drastically influence what you create. The old adage says, "You are what you eat." Well, I believe this is true for graphic design as well. The content I consume visually inspires my work. Now rewind to the spring of junior year. This semester brought a whole new variety of scenery, smells, faces, food, and friends. One ocean away, I spent 5 months studying in Milan, Italy. During this time, my exposure to the world was radically diverse. I took courses in brand identity, editorial graphic design, illustration, packaging design, and Italian design history. My one professor, Alessandro Baici, took it upon himself to always keep us inspired. Some of his wise words I recorded I will share with you. He said, "Read the book, close it, and think your own way. A question is more intelligent than an answer, and lastly, there are no other people in the world like you. Make it known." These words of wisdom seem so simple, but they were the quotes that taught me most and provided insight on a city and continent I was briefly adopting as my own. Inside the classroom at NABA, my course load and professors provided a different focal point, with experiential learning at the forefront. Field trips, conversation, and community were at the center of this educational setting. Illustration 3 in Italy brought diverse perspectives. The structure of this course included in-class exercises that not only challenged my right hand, but also some preconceived notions about illustration. Critiques from my Italian professor and Mexican classmates provided unique insight on cultural influence within the classroom. During these 5 months, I was fortunate enough to travel to 7 countries in 18 different cities, fueling my love for architecture and design. Numeral and typographic signs and doors quickly became my favorites, but doors are the highlight here. My mom came to visit me for spring break, and she inspired this fascination, pausing every 10 feet to photograph these beautiful facades. The collection of doors grew expansively. Every new destination shared its artistic beauty in these forms. I had no specific goal when capturing this initially. I just thought, this could serve as inspiration for a project someday. Little did I know that would be sooner than later in Senior Design Studio when we received the topic for our senior thesis project, before and after. In the brainstorming process, I thought of ways I can incorporate my travels abroad into this project. I knew I wanted my project to be heavily illustrative by design to showcase the skill set I've developed as a student. Thus, I illustrated a series of 35 doors based on existing doors seen in my travels to various countries, including Italy, Hungary, Portugal, Spain, France, and Switzerland. Considering the theme before and after, you may think, what are you redesigning, reimagining? Well, these doors do not exactly depict what was seen in real life. Rather, there are hints of illustrative reinterpretation. These doors capture the essence of my time abroad in an expressive and pictorial way. This led to the production of multiple different pieces, showing the physical translation of graphic design, from postcard and poster design to bookmaking. These doors await your curious eyes. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. I encourage you to continue exploring the doors presented in your own life, and I look forward to sharing my work with you in the gallery. A special thank you to my family, friends, teammates, and coaches for always being so supportive. Thank you to my classmates and professors throughout the past 4 years who have fostered a love and passion for design. I'm forever grateful to have had mentors such as Professor Patterson and Professor Rogers. As I move forward from your college, embarking on the journey ahead, I eagerly anticipate the next door. Thank you. And that concludes the graphic design presentations. I now introduce our fine artists.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us and for taking the time to listen to our presentations this evening. My name is Rhianna Eveland, and I am a fine art major with a minor in art history and a minor in chemistry. Yes, this is ultimately a presentation about my artwork and journey to this point, but I promise that information is relevant and will be expanded upon later. I started taking classes here at YCP part-time during the fall semester of 2017. That was quite some time ago, and at that point I did not know much about making art or what I even wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to be involved in the art world in some capacity. One of the first studio art classes you are required to take as a fine art major is Drawing 1. And how quickly did I find out in that class that I do not enjoy drawing as much as I once thought. I felt I was too impatient and worked too quickly to sufficiently sketch out enough detail. I began to feel unsure about what I was doing in this major. Drawing is a critical and foundational skill that all forms of art are built upon, and I just realized that I did not like it. I remember sitting in drawing class, finished with the in-class exercise for the day far before anyone else, terrified that Professor Fryer would tell me I'm doing something wrong or not trying hard enough. But all he said after glancing at my work was, "You draw like a painter." Painting 1 is also a required course for fine art majors, so I did not have much choice in taking the course. But now I was much more curious about painting. Working with acrylic paint was difficult at first, but I quickly grew into enjoying painting much more than drawing. However, I still had this feeling that I was not where I should be. Around this time, art history started to become more important to me, not just because it was required. I found the topics and concepts interesting and felt that the study and discussion of artwork was worth all the time and effort it took to understand it. I realized that I wouldn't be able to commit to a career of art making, that it was too important for me to monetize and turn into something I would inevitably begin to resent. I knew I wanted to remain connected to art. I wanted to be around artwork in some capacity, even if I was not the one making it. After some serious consideration and research, I discovered art conservation. Simply put, it is the intersection of art and science. It is the process of analyzing artwork chemically to identify sources of degradation and prevent further deterioration. However, one aspect to art conservation that is not covered in typical studio art classes was chemistry, and after talking with Dr. Hemzik, my advisor at the time, I declared a minor in chemistry as well as one in art history, and started taking chemistry courses the next semester. There was also a theme of observation within my work, pointed out by Dr. Hemzik after discussing the matter. She suggested that it might be connected to taking chemistry courses, which allowed me to look at my own artwork analytically. I started taking printmaking, and along with my progression in painting, I started focusing on implied movement and contrast. I still wasn't sure where I was going artistically and had yet to consider what I wanted my artwork to be about. I knew that the process and physical act of art making was primarily at hand. This aligned with the types of art I enjoyed creating, which were process-oriented, such as oil painting, or mechanically driven, like letterpress. In Painting 4, I decided to move into a different direction other than subject matter based upon things I liked. I was looking for something more personal that still held that original idea of observation. I wanted to keep the focus on high-contrast compositions that translate into paintings. Recalling my time in Painting 1, one of the first acrylic paintings I did was a black and white fabric form emphasizing movement and contrast, and I wanted to revisit that. The only stipulation for whatever I decided to paint next was I needed to source reference pictures for myself, either through my own photography or by getting permission to use someone else's photos to create my compositions. For this reason, my decision to paint deer was quite easy, as my dad, someone who is a lifelong hunter, has a trail camera that is nearly always set up. This allowed for a focus on the idea of observation, and also trail cameras use infrared light to take photos when in low or no light environments. To continue with contrast, I only use photos of deer taken at night. In order to plan out the compositions for each painting, I bought a small projector so I could project several images onto the canvas, altering the size and placement of the deer. Then using acrylic paint, I would paint in the images for the underpainting, and then using oil paint, add the details. After doing that for 10 paintings, I settled into a rhythm and got faster at planning and following through with each painting, making sure to focus on the contrast and altering each composition as I went along. This 10-painting assignment that was intended to explore concepts such as observation, observing what you cannot observe back, high contrast, and the interaction between form and movement ended up becoming the basis for my senior body of work. Following Painting 4, I took Senior Fine Art Studio, as well as letterpress, as I already had taken 2 printmaking courses in the semester prior. For Senior Studio, Professor Fryer had created a course titled Amalgamation, where we decided on a set of concrete rules to construct 10 cohesive paintings. I decided only to use the trail cam photos, as well as my own nighttime photography, and to use primarily black and white with limited color. Bringing in the new aspect of nighttime photography, such as pictures of houses and architecture that I had taken, provided the option to create new compositions, and I was able to start playing around more with size, shape, and perspective. There was also this nagging idea to include letterpress with my paintings, and while I do not particularly enjoy the tedious and hands-off digital aspects to design work, I do love the tedious and hands-on aspects of typesetting, and I wanted to find a way to bring painting and printmaking together. For my senior body of work, I wanted to keep focus on contrast and continue utilizing the shape and form of deer in varying environments. I still wanted to use trail cam photos, but I began sourcing references in other ways, such as taking a photo of a dead deer on the side of the road, which my sister photographed me doing as proof that I'm the weirder sibling, or using a picture of my sister's smashed windshield after a deer jumped onto her car while I was seated in the passenger seat. I also played around with media other than strictly oil painting. I wanted to experiment with the process of creating a composition using collage to get an idea of how I could adhere my printmaking, or other items such as stickers, glitter to a canvas or wood panel, which only reiterated the importance of the process I used to create artwork, such as the one used for creating my work on display in the gallery. Once again, I would like to thank you for your time and attention and for being here with us this evening. Please allow me to introduce our next presenter, Nathan.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. My name is Nathan Relac. It's pronounced Relac. And before I start, I wanted to issue a quick warning about some of the images in this presentation. None of it's really that bad, but you know, viewer discretion is advised. So just a bit about me. I'm a musician, a writer, and an artist in that order. This past year, I was elected music director of YCP Rhapsody, the a cappella group on campus, and it has basically been my whole life outside of class. But the art is what we're here to talk about today. I knew since about the start of middle school that I wanted to tell stories visually. By about halfway through high school, I was already set on comics, and when I was in my 4th year of drawing and painting, I based all of my projects around characters and stories that I wanted to tell. When it came to choosing a college, I knew that my career choice didn't require any degree, so I specifically chose York because it had a fine art major and a creative writing minor, which was perfect for my career choice of wanting to write comics. However, on the advice of one professor, I enrolled in graphic design instead, at first. Of course, there's plenty of overlap between graphic design and fine art, and with the pandemic my freshman year, fine art professors were much more lenient about digital work, so I got to stick to what I knew in drawing one. But over the semesters in graphic design, it became clear that the program was designed for a very specific career path and workflow, which didn't fit with my goals of being an independent storyteller. But that doesn't mean I didn't learn anything. The time I spent in graphic design taught me about things like type design, page layout, printing process, vector graphics, and the digital environment, all things that I'm sure will be useful in my career making comics. But I still needed more freedom to experiment in my work than the rigid rules and industry standards of graphic design could give me. My decision to return to my original plan of majoring in fine art and minoring in creative writing was based on the realization that I just didn't have the eye for graphic design. When I was having fun, my designs were dysfunctional, and when I was making good designs, I wasn't having fun. So I went back to fine art. The last thing I want to touch on before I get into my senior project is the time I spent in illustration and figure drawing. Obviously, with my goal of being to write comics, learning to draw the human figure realistically and learning to represent concepts stylistically were the two biggest skills for me to learn. In illustration, we were given weekly prompts to do a small drawing, and I pushed myself to make one-page comics for each of these, which was a good way for me to practice comic page layout. This was my favorite part of the class, and I later continued this into a weekly webcomic series called The Legend of Follicles over the summer of 2023. While that webcomic would be discontinued as I started my senior year, I went on to take the second level of both illustration and figure drawing. And even though I stopped at the second level of illustration, I spent this past spring in figure drawing 3. In figure drawing 3, we designed a semester project for ourselves. And while brainstorming, my professor joked, "You could try to create a digital drawing that I don't hate." So I spent the rest of my semester trying to apply all I had learned in figure drawing 1 and 2 to the digital medium, as well as connecting my observational skills to imagined subjects. So now we've come to my senior project, conceptualizing my first comic. I made the script for this page really short so I could take a second to breathe. At the beginning of this presentation, I said that I was a writer second and an artist third, and this shows in what I have in the gallery. You might notice that my show is a bit wordy, but that's because half of the project was about writing, and I also felt like some of the visual decisions I made needed a storytelling explanation. The arguable centerpiece of my exhibition is the annotated storyboard. This dirty, messy, sketchy booklet represents all of the work I did in the first half of the semester. Not just telling the story, but exploring page layout, composition, character blocking, and the comic medium itself. It ain't pretty, but it's honest work. The second half of the semester, I had to make the decision not to finish the first chapter, because my first draft of the story had too many holes in it to publish, and I didn't have time for a second draft. But this decision allowed me to jump ahead and show you some of the more interesting parts that I wouldn't get to in chapter 1. But what is the story, though? Well, I'll tell you. Gargoyle is the story of a young man who is given the power to transform his body after his father uses an experimental medicine to save his life. He takes this power as an opportunity to fight back against crime and corruption in his city. The original inspiration for this story was a video game by the name of Prototype. But to develop the concept further, I looked into the body horror genre as well as some real-world animals. This is a sort of mood board I put together with a bunch of body horror, sci-fi, animal photos. I didn't make any of this, but if I tried to credit everyone here, we'd be here all night. In that same vein, it wouldn't be right for me to put other people's work up on the wall, so this is my last chance to tell you about my influences. Just looking at the first 2 villains here, we've got influences from Monster Hunter, my favorite video game, Resident Evil, The Lion King, etc. So that's about all I got for this presentation. Everything else you need to know is on the wall, and if it's not, you can ask me in person. And I'd like to thank my parents for supporting me in my admittedly lofty ambitions. And I would now like to welcome Nia Lake to the stage.
All right, thank you and welcome. My name is Nia. My senior series is called Supernova, which means the explosion of a star. A beautiful sight that reminds me of my growth this semester. But let's start from the beginning. At first, when I started my senior project, I kept trying to express something I couldn't figure out. I experimented with things like AI, hoping to find inspiration, to experimenting with messages within tarot cards and stages of grief, but I was still uninspired. No matter how much I tried to focus on finding that inspiration, nothing really got me inspired. As winter passed and a new semester came, I started art therapy. The same place I learned that art you make, no matter the form, represents a part of you. At the same time, I learned that it was okay to be vulnerable. At this time, I want to show you one of the pieces that I've done in art therapy that allowed me to kind of explore different types of materials along with some emotion that I didn't recognize at the beginning. My amazing professor, she always encouraged me to try new things and look at things from a new perspective. Another slide of it, the full one. Focusing back on my senior series, I decided to look back at my work. I was ready to reflect. From there, I used the emotion to carry as reflections of my life that I was ready to let go of. As I continued this series, I noticed that I drew a lot of work that reminded me of things I craved. One of them was affection. Don't get me wrong, I got it, but I might have needed a little bit more. I wanted so bad to be held like something precious. Unconsciously, I referenced the Kiss painting by Gustave Clement and a few of my AI creations that I had shown you previously. And with that, I kept focusing on that passion. From there, I also had brought this influence to other classes like illustration. Illustration, I was given a theme, something you love. What did I love? I loved my growth and I love where I was now. And I'm very proud of where I'd come. And I would never want to do it again, honestly. A little challenging. As we continue on with my series, you'll notice that there is a lot of stars. Why the stars? Well, it's nothing too deep. I've always dreamed of being as special as a star. No, not a celebrity, but ones in the sky. I always thought they were so pretty, and I always wanted to imagine myself as a star. Though I won't explain everything, considering how personal this series is to me, I will happily share some small details within them along with a small description at the end. For this one, every star along with the sun and the moon were all people I hold dear. Without those people, I wouldn't be where I am today. And with each one of these in a few slides, it'll be nice little videos of the work I've done. As sad as this piece is, it's all the things I love, besides the trash in the ocean, disgusting. All the objects that can be found within this trench, each having a heavy impact and a variety of memories. All of them that you can see, including the tires, is something that I love even today. This piece represents the feeling of suffocation, anxiety, and the crushing weight of not feeling like being enough. The fear of letting those important see the weakness that you didn't want to show. This piece is a show of my struggle with accepting affection, even if it came from the one I desired it from the most. As I allowed myself to be open with them, it became something I found comfort in, the feeling of being whole again. For this, my favorite piece, a feeling of relief and celebration for the new chapter in my life. Sunflowers have always reminded me of happiness, and this is the happiest I've ever been. I'm so happy to have reached this far into my life, and I finally have hope for the future. Also, if you missed some things from the video, don't worry, it's inside of the gallery as well. Now for the small piece. First came the moon and 2 stars. The third was cherished by the sun like no other. There were 4 until me, but it never felt the same. Even if it was just you and me, when the youngest 2 came, I was alone again. Jealousy, a bitter lover through and through. Calls your name like an angel, but will drag you through the depths like a siren. So here I wait at the bottom, hoping one day you'll look for me. I hate fighting, yet we fought like cats and dogs, tears hot and burning like the rage that brewed inside. But it stayed locked away no matter what, because I hated disappointing you more. Rage as bright as a star, but burned out the more I tried to hide. Yet all I could do was close my eyes, swallow my feelings, and apologize. Each kiss felt like a kiss of a cigarette. The burn was bitter, but its warmth and smell was an addiction. But as time went on, it hurt less and less. From then, I knew I deserved the love you provided. You were the sun that kept me warm. I'm proud of you. Was all it took to finally feel at home. A home I've never known, but a home I've always desired. I would like to thank everybody for coming out. I would like to specifically thank all my professors who came out along with my friends. Thank you to Anya, wherever you are in this crowd, for telling me to follow my heart and my passion. To my parents and stepdad Max, thank you for everything. Now I would like to introduce Paige. Can I have some help? Where's the presenter view? Hello everyone, my name is Paige Miller. Thank you for coming here today to listen to all our presentations. I'm going to start my presentation showing you some of my past work and my journey through college. Some reoccurring themes in my work is using the human form, psychology, the queer community, and sexuality. This was my first oil painting when I started in my final year of high school. I fell in love with oil paint, and at the time I didn't know it, but it set me up for lots of waiting for paint to dry in college. I experimented with cool and warm undertones and more creative compositions. This also started a small business that I made during COVID. This was my business logo, and I started to advertise and sell my work. I wanted to dive into digital art as well to sell work faster. I painted nudes for women and got lots of practice with the human form, made some money, and learned more about body positivity for a great community of human form artists. This artwork was created for my first exhibition at York College. I mixed my love for oil paint and digital art, which is most likely why I made the deadline. I focused on creating interesting lighting and wanted to start conveying more of a story and meaning behind my artwork. This painting is an example of another art style I used a lot when selling my work. I used acrylic paint on canvas to create an abstract representation of the human form and got to experiment a lot with different color combinations. This also opened my work to surrealism and wanting to understand an unusual scope for a human form. During my sophomore portfolio, I got the chance to use my updated skills on my past favorite style. I got to improve on my colors being crisper with the acrylic paint and having more knowledge about grayscale and being able to add more complexity to natural shapes within the design. To gear off from art for a bit, I started my psychology minor halfway through my time here in college. I always loved psychology and wanted to take classes for fun, but found a way to apply it to art. I started art therapy classes for scholars at York College and got the chance to study abroad in India, where I got to do art therapy with kids there. I started a creative writing class as well during my time in college and became obsessed with writing poetry and short stories. I started entering contests and was pleasantly surprised when other people also liked my writing. I started writing poetry from my own work and other people's art and other artists' paintings as well, which helped me create more meanings behind my pieces. A new media I learned during my time here is photography. I had an amazing teacher, Ashley Bowlesley, that taught me to love the amazing subject. I completed a minor in the subject and was able to do an independent study. Within the independent study, I got to research cinematography and apply it through lighting and composition. There are many different ways that I get inspiration and references for my art.
I'm a huge fan of Pinterest, and I like to create mood boards for upcoming projects. I also use photography of myself and my friends to help build off of images that I want to convey. I start my paintings by doing sketches using circles to indicate scale for major joints, and then I use lines, similar to the one in the middle, to develop more of a 3D and realistic aspect. I also mark out where I want to do shading and more definition for different muscles. So for one of my senior paintings, this is how I completed my sketch. I used myself for references as long as online to develop the image that I wanted. I knew for this piece I wanted to use 2 canvases to complete the painting in order to convey the meaning behind the work, which you'll see in the final product. After finishing my sketch on the canvas, I started painting with the acrylic layer. This acts as a primer for the canvas as well as allowing me to map out where I want to put my oil paint. I used pink and white to create the undertones of the painting because I wanted a good natural base to apply an array of colors that didn't have a specific skin tone. This is a finished product with the oil paint. It represents growing up, female and feminine, identifying and presenting, and having your worth basically being what's in between your legs. Women's sexuality is often represented through male sexuality or misrepresented. The canvases are set apart for audience interpretation of what's in between. The next 3 drawings were a part of a queer cinema series where I pulled my references from overlapping queer cinema. This was a painting with symbolism of dark queer relationships stemming from jealousy surrounding from non-monogamy pressures. This drawing, I had the chance to experiment with mixed medias. I used oil pastels, watercolor, and acrylic paint. The drawing focuses on aspects of character and setting in the abstract form. The character is the focused and active background, and clothing was important to form a character. This is the final drawing of the series. My focus was on surrealism within the context and the figure. I used techniques I would use for digital work for more of a cartoonish style. This painting was done as a result of a human form dissection and surrealism series. The male form was done with oil paint and the background acrylic. This painting represents issues surrounding dissociation with sex work, specifically with the focus of queer youth. For this final painting of my senior work, I created this oil painting of a classic female nude. Black women are often not seen in a picturesque media, so it was important to me to create a very classic and beautiful nude portrait. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. I'm grateful for all the opportunities and experiences I got from my time here at York College, and now feel prepared for my career outside of school. Thank you, and I'll now introduce my hamburger helper, Jacob Sprenkle.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out today to support us all. My name is Jacob Sprankle, and I'm here today to talk to you about real estate opportunities in your area. No, I'm not. I'm here to talk about art, my art specifically, and the journey I've had through my college career. As you will come to see, I'm heavily influenced by all things fantastical, whether they be lighthearted or dark, happy or depressing. Media like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones have had a profound impact on my life. If something has dragons or elves throwing fireballs, I probably love it. I was able to express my love of fantasy in one of my very first assignments here at college in my Drawing 1 class. This assignment tasked us with creating a monster by assembling different animal features together, and it was one of my first experiences with character, or in this case, monster design. I was able to continue my exploration of monster design a few semesters later in Drawing 3 as part of a series where I made a whole bunch of nasty creatures. This particular monster was made by collaging together various sheets of colored paper and then drawing on top of it with pen to create a stitched monster. I also had the chance to take a more conceptual approach to art in my Design 1 and 2 classes with Professor Noble. These courses helped me better understand how to create a sense of flow in a piece and gave me a taste for an abstract art which I would later return to. A semester or two later in Painting 3, we were asked to make a non-representative self-portrait by showcasing our own interests. Now, you might not be able to tell from this painting, but I really love video games. I also tried out a symmetrical approach in this work to make it more unique and eye-catching. I found that I really loved the process and final look of symmetrical pieces, so I kept at it. This time, I went back to the more abstract approach I explored in Design 1 by combining different figures from pop culture into amalgamated forms. I also had the opportunity to experiment with watercolor, which was an interesting experience to say the least. Later on, I decided to try out some complete symmetrical abstraction. I overlapped multiple images of characters and creatures from all over pop culture and used different line colors to create visual interest. I've taken a break from this style recently since it's so time-consuming, but I'd like to go back and develop it in the future. I then returned to representational art during my time in both Figure Drawing 1 and 2. Having the chance to improve my renderings of the human figure by working directly with live models was an incredible opportunity, and I couldn't recommend it enough if you wanted to improve. These classes also let me work on my use of value and light and shadow representation. I also got to work with charcoal, though I'm still traumatized from the mess of it after it exploded in my bag after one class. Finally, last semester in Painting 3, I wanted to work on my landscapes, as it's something I hadn't really had the opportunity to do yet. So, as is my way, I decided to make a series of fantastical locales. I wanted to challenge myself to work larger scale and with different materials as well, so I used acrylic markers and made these paintings poster size with polytab fabric. Now we come to my senior project. For the big hurrah of my college experience, I wanted to pay homage to Greek myths. Mythology as a whole is such a fascinating combination of fantasy and history, and it's responsible for so many of the tropes and character types we see in modern media. I specifically wanted to highlight the goddesses Athena, Artemis, and Aphrodite as they take part in some of my favorite stories. Many of us had to read Greek stories like the Iliad and the Odyssey in school, but I loved them even when everyone else was falling asleep. I was that one kid in school lurking in the library, looking up the family history of different gods during study hall. In the modern day, we can hardly walk down the street without seeing some form of mythological symbol or iconography. EMTs have the Greek symbol for medicine on the side of their ambulances, Starbucks uses a two-tailed siren as their logo, and Nike is literally named after the Greek goddess of victory. I start my paintings in the manner that most painters do, by placing large shapes of forms in the composition and trying to figure out what the layout of the piece should be. Usually I will start with an underpainting as well, which I will then paint over using acrylic mixed with some matte medium to give the piece some definition. After I finished formatting the paintings, I transitioned to working on defining the forms of each character and objects on the canvas. Later on, I'll go back and do some detail on both the figures and the environment before finishing the painting with highlights and shadows. Aside from painting, research played a very important part in this project as well. Even though I was already very familiar with the subject matter, I thought that it was important to double-check my information and learn more about the topic. You can never do too much double-checking on what you already know. You just might get a headache from staring at books and screens. I wanted to incorporate symbols and concepts that are associated with each of the goddesses in their respective paintings, in addition to references to other classical depictions of them. They sort of act like subtle allusions to the mythos that stand out if you're familiar with the stories, and even if you aren't, there's still fun bits of trivia to notice. On the whole, this series is basically intended to be a sort of love letter to the mythical and fantastical stories I've loved for so long and as a culmination of my college career. In the future, I hope I'll have the chance to paint even more figures from the mythos, so here's hoping that paint is free worldwide in the next few months. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight and supporting us. I would like to thank my family, classmates, and my professors for these last few years. I also want to give a special thanks to Professor Noble, who helped me with this series. Thank you again, and see me after about that real estate. Now, if you will please help me welcome my favorite cave dweller, Ash Naylor.
Hello everyone, my name is Ash Naylor, and thank you for coming out and supporting my classmates and me this evening. I'm a fine art major with a minor in art history, which is pretty cool. Something I find that surprises people is that I did not start my college career in the fine art department, although I wish I had. I actually started with this, criminal justice, and I hated it. But little did I know just how much it would end up influencing my work when I switched majors. For my freshman and sophomore years, I experimented with silly imagery, specifically in my Intro to Computer Graphics class. It was during COVID, kind of, and masking and online classes. It was half online, half in person. I needed something fun to do. The silliness could not last forever, though. Without realizing it, I had to confront some old, unrealized trauma through a painting of skeletons, of all things. I won't go into what it was, as frankly, I don't want to. This is just a backstory dump. But then I had to do it again when I was dumped in probably one of the worst ways I could imagine. I had received a very long-winded text at 3 a.m. and was promptly blocked. So I had to let it out. And again, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she's okay, don't worry. This was made in my printmaking class. I had to make a little character to cheer myself up, and he brought a lot of laughter to other people, and I never had the heart to explain why he was made. And again, when my childhood dog Buddy was attacked by a loose pit bull in front of our house. This drawing doesn't depict him, by the way. It's a thylacine, also known as a Tasmanian tiger. I'm not that crazy to show you a drawing of an injured dog. And again, when we had to put him down 6 months later in May. At this point, around my junior year, I decided to just embrace the bad, the wild, the crazy, the weird. I hadn't been to therapy in a while thanks to quarantine, and I couldn't go back because my file had been tossed out. I relied on myself to help myself, hence all the weird, nonsensical art. I found comfort in media from the horror genre, specifically drawing inspiration from artist Eddie Adams, the games Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and more recently, the 2004 film Saw. But for my senior body of work, to achieve the level of horror and symbolism that can be found in the horror media that I had fallen head over heels for, I had to do some crazy research. That's me doing research, by the way. My computer is huge. Most research was innocent, like studying up on symbols. I totally recommend this book if you're interested in iconography. Most symbols in my art are personal symbols, so they might not mean the same thing to everyone, but it's still important to know how my symbols might read to someone else. But a lot of it was not as innocent. This is Death Scenes, a homicide detective scrapbook, censored for your viewing pleasure. It's exactly what you would expect it to be. If you decide to seek this book out, please, please, please proceed with caution. It was gruesome and not an easy read. Research also included playing video games. I actually built the layout in The Sims 4 and used screenshots as a reference for 2 of my paintings. This was the more fun part of researching for my paintings. Without spoiling too much, my senior body of work is about the grotesque, taking bad and unpleasant thoughts and feelings and using them for something visually interesting. My pieces for this show also took inspiration from the dramatic lighting and narratives in art from the Baroque period in style. I thought it would be the most fitting for what I had envisioned. What they say is true, you do suffer for your art, but I think the suffering can evolve into pride and satisfaction, which is pretty rewarding in the end. This presentation was probably a bit rough to sit through, so I'd like to thank you, the audience, for listening to my half-insane or maybe totally insane ramblings. The severed arm was chosen for a little bit of irony. Before I go, I'd like to thank my parents, my siblings, my classmates in front of me, and my 2 best friends, Belle and Vivi, for their support. I don't think I would have made it this far without you all. Thank you. And now, And I would like to bring up my fellow lion, Hailey Kehoe.
Hello everyone, my name is Hailey. Over my senior year and for my final project, I wanted to uncover my inner self and reflect on my journey, which had a large impact on my life. According to Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This quote helped inspire me and what I wanted to create over the course of this year, along with aiding in my passion of going into art therapy. On February 9th, 2013, I suffered a severe brain hemorrhage that completely altered my life. It shaped me into who I am today and inspired a change in my artwork. It shifted what I wanted to convey, deeper and hidden meanings. When I took Painting 3, I wanted to primarily focus on detail. Ultimately, I decided to incorporate that in the idea of therapy animals, which had really helped me and was one of my favorite things from being in the hospital. In Sculpture 2, I wanted to make pieces based on the form of cats. This allowed me to focus on the details of muscle movement. While taking the senior studio class, we did an automation project. With this, I painted a base of a hospital room with an overlapping of nature, featuring a technique that I had learned in the expressive therapy class. During my independent study, I wanted to further my understanding in art therapy, but I ultimately wanted to uncover my inner self. I had achieved this through my favorite thing. Journaling. It is meant to help you tell your story and uncover your inner self. When taking Drawing 3, I made still life drawings that were composed of a few items based around my hospital journey, along with some random things. What I had completed during the senior studio class was a primary inspiration for what I wanted to make for this exhibition, furthering the idea of nature overlapping and overgrowing a hospital. Animals and my own pets were a large part of my healing. They never left my side after I came home, which also ties into nature. It is something that always regrows itself after any disaster, representing what I went through. It was also a quiet place for me when I first came home. When deciding what I wanted to make for this exhibition, I opted to combine everything that I had done over this year, resulting in a series of 4 paintings representing each season. I wanted to create an idea of not only regrowth, but vacancy as well. In my paintings, I included various different details consisting of scattered and broken hospital items. This piece shows a different type of landscape and has the same abandoned aspects, featuring a no entrance sign, representing my inner struggle of identifying the side of my life and how it has impacted me, both good and bad. All of my paintings in this series have a presence of most of the same things, other than with this work, there is a hazard sign indicating caution should be taken. This piece consists of hospital items scattered among the trees. All of these items are broken into pieces and destroyed. This third painting also takes on all the same things as the previous works I have done, the scattered items and the ruins of a building. Thank you to my family, friends, my professors, especially Dr. Stabley, who helped aid my passion for going into art therapy. Remember, at the end of every rough patch, there is beauty, change, and growth ahead.
All right, that concludes our presentations. Can we have one last round of applause for all the seniors? Wonderful job, everyone. And before I turn you loose on the food, I just want to remind you, fine arts on the right, graphic designs on the left, portfolios are in the center where no food shall go. And also, I wanted to just acknowledge, as I'm watching the presentations and I'm back and forth, seeing who is here. And now I'm opening the door to the possibility of forgetting somebody again, but we've got Dr. Kurowski here, who is very important to helping with Nathan's work, and Dr. Sponsler, who helped with Ash, and of course, Karen Stabley as well, and actually, Rye Fryer is right there. He's on YouTube Live, that camera. Hi, Rye. Hi, Rye. Sorry, everybody. He's in Idaho. He's on sabbatical. But also, yeah, Denise Campbell. There's a lot of darkroom in this. So it's really, it's a whole department providing inspiration for the students. And they gave some great shout outs and appreciation. And of course, the families, thank you for your support, for entrusting us with your wonderful kids for the last 4 years or however long it's been. Now, I'm keeping you from the food, and it's right out there, so go enjoy, and we will reconvene in a little bit in the gallery. Thank you.